Right, we're just waiting for a few more people to join. Great. So good morning, good afternoon, good day to everybody joining the session. We've put together a series of sessions which we hope to cover off around digital document approval processes. And I hope to help those who have a basic understanding on the subject and those who want to get to the next step on their transformation journey. So we aim to give you and your team some ideas as to how to increase efficiencies when it comes to approval processes, as well as incorporating electronic signatures. So we've developed a session which is aimed to be a few short sessions to help educate others in this area to get the most from their existing investment, maybe like yourself, to introduce a flexible validation and signing workflow. So these types of solutions can certainly increase supplier engagement and even customer engagement too. So as far as a bit of admin is concerned, please leave questions in the chat windows provided during the session, as we hope to have a Q&A at the end of this session. So let's begin. So interestingly, I've spoken to many businesses leaders in the UK who are keen to help, for me to help them and Simtrax to help them leverage their electronic signing into different areas of their business, whilst remembering sort of regulatory elements that have come in, and clearly the upside of capitalizing on SaaS technologies, right? So the technologies that we'll cover and walk through today across this series aim to fix these sort of common bottlenecks, which we've already experienced over the last few decades. You know, no matter what your industry or department, you probably still have paper around the office, even though the narrative might be to go paperless, you still have you know, chasing physical sign-offs day to day as a common thread. You may even be one of those managers, hopefully, on the sessional leaders who prefer to just keep things simple, right, and avoid this paper-based process. So the session today is focused on finance, sales, operations, and procurement functions. So therefore, the focus on the manager side is to make sure that these managers and leads within those departments recognize the challenges of today, right? So making sure, especially with remote teams, we all have bottlenecks mounting up day in, day out, and we've got to deal with them, right? So throughout the session, we'll focus on allowing you to prioritize accordingly within your dynamic and fast-paced environment, encouraging full ownership and management of maintaining your validation and sign-off processes from beginning to end. So ensuring that sort of all controls, all processes, all procedures are adhered to anytime, anywhere, right? That's the benefits behind making sure that your processes are digitalized. So we aim to help you focus more on your strong analytical and problem-solving skills, not chasing paper copies, managing availabilities for your team, constant reminders, and basically scratching around in years to come for those filed copies that nobody can find when the auditor comes around. So for audit purposes, right? So making sure that's all available to you and your team. So let's take a step into the future, if you don't mind. So the year's 2023, and every one of your competitors hasn't recognized three keys to deploying your rapid digital workflow across their organization. You, on the other hand, correctly recognized that back in 2020, sort of that digitalization is critical, and then by 2021, you've been able to deploy ways of faster execution of these things, like faster payments through QR codes. And then by 2022, you're now managing and convincing even your senior managers that automation of core document processes are critical to stay in business moving into 2023. So you've even recognized allowing your teams and your colleagues back in 2021, most would be working remotely. So if that's sort of a potential future goal, let's say, I have a few questions for yourself and your team. Do you have plans to help make this a reality? Have you got the right support team in place? Have you got the right partners? Have you even got the right peers to guide you through the challenges of moving away from paper approval processes? So please leave sort of comments in the sections provided, or alternatively email me if you've got the answers ready, or simply just book a deep dive audit session with one of the Simtrax team. We'll be happy to go through this in a bit more detail. So when you're measuring like for like, measuring sort of paper versus digital, it's clear to have plenty of futurist, solid leans towards all things digital. Some touch points become obvious when considering remote working, right? So, if we take, for example, printing, if you order a case, a company would normally spend in the region, which I was staggered by, £224 simply to distribute the paper that's being printed, what's being printed on the paper, right? So individual papers. And then just from a time perspective, right, you've got electronic documents that share that can cut out this, and on average, it's around 4 days wait time to process the similar document. So studies have shown that for every pound spent printing documents into a company incurs a £6 to handle each and distribute each paper copy, which I think is extraordinary. So no matter, so essentially from a signatory perspective, right, there's no more bottlenecks in this document lifecycle, right? Waiting for documents, whether they get mailed out, whether they get signed, and then obviously returned from the approver, and the document can be sent out and returned within minutes, right? Allowing the document to be moved to the next step wherever sort of the teams may be allocated or located even according to the requirements. So all these points are incredibly compelling, and here at Simtrax we clearly have similar narratives, which basically means that from our space, from this space, Simtrax has been working on delivering things like working from home, things like teleworking, but it's basically digitalizing all kinds of documents. Has become sort of impossible to ignore, right? So we've got a bit of information here to share with yourself, but can I just draw your attention to something that can be overlooked? What I've experienced with a lot of the conversations that I've had is there is a difference between electronic signature and digital signatures, right? In the first instance, the electronic version is just an embedded image, signature image, right? Whilst the digital version generates a certified version of the document, which clearly, as you can imagine, is a lot more secured, all the way up to the highest level of encryption, right? So we've used an ERP example here, but let's just remember the principle that what we'll cover off today is more focused on electronic signature, but feel free to reach out if you have a digital signature requirement wherever you may be located across the globe. So let's take a step back. So, why do we want to reduce these bottlenecks? So from a paperless mindset, it's hard, especially with paper prices increasing, as I've heard recently over the last 18 months by 40%. Now, this is clearly going to not have a huge impact on your profits, but it will impact your profits, right? So, what you've next got to recognize is, you've had slow engagement with your executives or your managers, and it's hard to do, right? So because they clearly prefer digital content, they prefer to consume on the go, let's say, and just from a response rate, this can certainly help their cash flows, right? So an interesting sort of bit of research that I found out that 44% of approval processes are still physical signatures, which I find stunning. However, current market direction has meant that beyond 80% needs to be signed electronically, right? So that's clearly the future. That's clearly the requirement. And then from simply missing signed documents. There's a huge trust issue, right? So delivering trust into the business, and not just basically having these reconciliation tasks, but having the traceability of signed documents is critical, right? And there will be legislation coming in the not too distant future around sort of electronic signatures and digital signatures, which sort of mitigate this whole thing, right? Because we don't want to have this position where we're missing signed invoices, because they're critical, right? So these types of documents are fundamental to your business and remaining in business. And then obviously you've got the difficult challenge of manually re-entering or entering these bits of data back into an ERP of some description. So sort of learning sort of manual tasks lets us both find ways to enhance your supplier engagement, customer engagement through process automation. So the session today focused on providing more efficient ways to manage your remote teams, as you have bottlenecks mounting up that I've referenced already and need to deal with them, right? So, for us, we'll help you focus on automating more processes, introducing real-time monitoring, helping you develop triggers and alerts to notify validators and approvers, and then seamlessly archiving these documents digitally for audit purposes, right, for the future. So my name's Kevin Little. I've worked with Simtrax for the last 4 years now, and my focus here at Simtrax is helping businesses securely automate data and digital document process workflows. My role here is to transform businesses by finding the right solution that fits all their needs, and then hopefully going above and beyond here to hopefully build a relationship that allows you to start at a sort of a project level, not scaling this out too early. Why? Because I very much feel that user adoption is absolutely critical in this process before we sort of scale it to sort of an enterprise-ready solution. So Simtrax is a sort of an international software vendor. We've spent well over 30 years now serving 3,500 customers, and we've deployed we've got development and support teams spread across the globe. And what I'm most proud about working with Simtrax is basically the customer loyalty, right? We've averaged 12 years, which I think is exceptional. And sort of the reason behind that, I think, is because we've got a fantastic offering that's easy to handle, whether you're using an ERP, a BPM, or a CRM document workflow, and we've addressed your specific needs of customizing our off-the-shelf software to make sure that even if you're an on-premise or cloud or a hybrid of both, so a SaaS-based architecture, we can help seamlessly integrate this into your existing process, no matter what your industry. So, although Simtrax has 5 solutions, we'll certainly focus on validation and signing or document approval processes, and we'll touch upon this in the later session, hopefully, as far as the demo is concerned. So I aim to share with you how we've sort of helped other businesses. So these are the types of businesses we've helped, and obviously many others, and to basically introduce a fruitful peer-to-peer conversation to help build your network of supporting people, so to help you, to help you sort of move to the next step. Let's say my focus is to make sure that you've also got peers out there in your industry that we can potentially help you engage with to overcome certain things, right? Which come up. There's hurdles that come up, right? So remember that no person can work alone on overcoming these types of challenges, and we must have a group of people around you or us, let's say, which is a team of product, functional, and technical expertise, as well as peers, right, to help you get over each and every hurdle, as you may experience it moving away from your paper environment. Because clearly, what people aren't necessarily aware of is a lot of organizations have to go through a bit of change management to experience this properly. So let's take a look at the two modes of approval workflows available from Simtrax. So in the lower half of the screen, you can see an R and a WS in blue. And this basically stands for our applications called Reviewer and Website. Both allow for electronic signing and are used to build the approval workflows, right? So Reviewer on the left-hand side allows the users to connect using a VPN connection, as you can see. And then the website version allows those people who are just using an HTTPS or a secured URL access. But in essence, every other part of the workflow remains the same no matter what you're doing, which you'll see in a short while during the demonstrations. But hopefully that gives you a nice little overview as to sort of what we're talking about here. Step one, taking it out of an ERP, processing, automating, and scheduling that information to the right recipient, getting the response back, either approval or rejection, and then passing it on by email, or if that needs to be printed again, then so be it. But quite often people put this in cloud environments and so on. So here are the two types, which I've referenced already. But as you can see, both help reduce paper usage, higher levels of security, clearly one higher than the other, but hopefully with the aim of increasing productivity. So let's jump into the exciting part, the demonstration. So we've got 4 quick demos planned for yourself. So you're going to have one which overviews a simple workflow using WebSign. Then you'll have a live demonstration, which unfortunately I tried to get the opportunity to share this with yourselves who are on this call, but I couldn't quite get that past the legal team. But so we'll use one of our let's say external Gmail accounts just to show you what that looks like as an external recipient if required, and then go on to review an overview of the interface. And then making sure that the example that we use is for a purchase order, and then we'll end with, actually we've got 5, with a sales order as well, just to finish off that loop. So what we'll do is we'll jump into a demonstration, if you don't mind. Right, let me just fire up the machine. Here we go. So here we go. We've got a virtualized environment. So this is what you can see here is a Compleo console. And as I've mentioned already, what we'll touch upon, these are the workflows available, the document workflows. We'll attach a document as part of this. This is clearly a manual process, but clearly this is just a view of what you will be able to see, just to help you see, because this clearly behind the scenes will be happening automatically. So what we'll do is we'll quickly add a purchase order, just an example that we've used here. We'll add that file, and then what you can see is it's loading the workflow. There's a server function behind that's coordinating this whole thing, and as you can see, what we'll do is there's some tabs across the top, which is showing all the required entries. There's which we'll touch upon in a short while. What needs reviewing, what's awaiting a signature, what's in progress, and what's completed. Right. So in theory, if we go to this, we'll basically need to review the document that's been created. And what we have here is, I'll just need to quickly copy the Gmail account, because why? We'll be adding a signature in here. So we're editing the workflow. So here's an internal email function, which is sort of a link to AD authentication, obviously allowing certain types of signing available, the type which we'll go into in a short while. I'll show you, it's obviously better than that. And what I'll do is I'll quickly add in the email, which I hope to be the attendees of the session. But we'll play with what we've got here. And then we've got the fully customizable body of the email, which you can edit depending on what's required to be sent out. So as part of that, we can certainly review the document, but I'll do that a bit later. We've got the external elements added, and we've got the internal elements added. That's great. So we'll send that out. And as you can see, it's been processed. So we finished the review cycle. That's now no longer present. And as you can see, if I jump into the awaiting signature, it's now saying that it's waiting on a signature, should be waiting on a signature from the, waiting on a signature from the, let me just show you the screen. I've tried to do this. So what we have here is we have a document. I don't know whether you can see, hopefully you can see my screen. You've essentially got a signature element here within the document. You've got a web sign element. And you've got three options as I've referenced already. Okay, I'm hoping you can see my screen. I just have a note that you can't quite see. See my screen. I'm assuming now you can. Let me just take a few steps back here. So essentially, just a quick recap. So there's workflows here. I don't know when it paused, but apparently somebody's saying it's paused. Here's the workflows available. We've chosen external, internal workflows, uploaded a purchase order document. We've then reviewed the document and added a signature into that document. So we won't be able to see what we're waiting review because we've already made those changes. But in essence, we have a document here awaiting a signature. It has notifications already set up from a status perspective. It needs to be showing. So what I'll have here, if I just hop to the next window, give me a second. We have a, let me just move this across here. We have the document window here. I've gone into my Gmail account. I've used a URL link to activate the signed document. Now what you can see here is there's clearly a signed version of this. So there's three types. There's type it, there's draw it, or upload it. So I'll quickly just jump into all three. Clearly, as I mentioned, this is more of a digital signature element, but we can touch upon that in a later session. What I like to use is I like to use the draw it function, just because I'm a bit of a drawer at heart, and I prefer to do it this way. I've created a comment section as well, which hopefully allows you to add the comments necessary for the document. And then I essentially make sure that that document gets sent back to the supervisor function that allows the document to be signed or sent on to the next person in the signature. As you can see here, the document's actually been signed by the Gmail account, and now we're waiting for essentially a signature from ourselves or me internally. So what I can do now is I can jump into here, this window on the right-hand side, and select the option to sign the document myself. So again, I'll probably use the drawing function. There's a few more comments because we've changed that around. And then maybe something which is quite popular in the UK, causing problems. Check the transport route. So yeah, so that basically makes sure that the document is now signed by two parties. Obviously, that we can put in thresholds as to what levels and so on that is required. That document is now signed. So as far as we're concerned, that document is now being processed for both signatures. And what we'll find here as we go along the tabs, we'll see what documents are in process. There's one I did a while ago. And now this is the tab that basically needs to show the final document, right? So what we have here is we have a view of the purchase order that's been enhanced, and we have the initial signature, then we have a secondary signature, and all that document information is present. It'll then show you the recipient, and importantly, it'll also have information not just around the status, but everything supporting that document. So what we'll also touch on as well as part of this is we have a, if I go back to my demo user, we actually have a version that's gone out to this recipient, which basically has both copies, both signed copies, signatures even, of the document. So as far as a live demonstration, obviously it's never gone smoothly. I don't know why you may not have been able to see that, but in essence, we have the live demonstration that basically covers off how simple it is. I've shown you the manual process behind this, but in essence, making sure that the workflows are as seamless as possible. So I appreciate that took a bit longer than initially planned. But what I'll do here is I'll give you a quick example as to how the signed documents can be passed around. So as you can see here, this is how you'd create the document. Clearly, as I mentioned before, from a validation perspective, this is now the ability to validate the documents using WebSign. And then essentially as part of that validation process, that then allows an authorizer or a signature to be assigned to the document via a URL link. And that document can either be signed through mobile. In this case, we've used a two-factor authentication option available for mobile users. Then the user on their mobile device will be able to access it in exactly the same way, editing where comment sections go and where signatures go as well. Now, one thing to note here is they're actually signing the document, right? So part of that signing of the document, you've actually created a certified copy, as I've mentioned already, in the PDF version. That, as you can imagine, gets archived with all the appropriate metadata assigned to that document. So as far as the workflow is concerned, this is a basic example using an SAP environment where you have output documents coming out of SAP. Complayer then puts that into a WebSign hosted environment that can be either internally to your organization or externally using our own cloud or Azure environment. And as you can see, as you've already seen, they can basically allow multiple signatories to sign the document, which clearly is a good function. So whether that's internal, whether it's external, hopefully you get the understanding of what that means to your organization. So here we've got the reviewer aspect. Again, this will go through a simple example of a task-orientated view of reviewing a document. Again, you've pretty much seen the same purchase order as far as making sure that the approvals, the validations need to happen. Now, as you can see, as part of this validation, you have the information fields already populating. Again, you can add the comments as well, and you can also add a electronic signature or a digital signature should you require. And as I mentioned already, depending on the level of security, we can accommodate that as well. And then you just simply select OK or reject, and that will then pass that into the end state of the document, which is from, as you've already seen, the archiving function, which is incredibly powerful off the back of metadata. Then you've got the emailing system, which I've already highlighted, where you can see the final document, and there's a load of other workflows that you can help through this process. So as part of that, we've also got a purchase order, so you can see this live happening, where you've got an ERP, where you've generated the purchase order, and then from there, what happens behind the scenes is you essentially use Complayer Hybrid to connect to your ERP using the print function. Why? Because as you can see, the purchase order isn't great, right? From these ERPs, it doesn't provide the greatest document layout. So as part of that print function, it then automates the workflow that's required for that document. And as you can see here, now steps about making sure the validator, or the validation of the documents is there, and then transforming the documents across the workflow allows the end user or the manager to validate the document using a URL link. Clearly, they've got to sign in to Compleo, whether that's on-premise or in your own cloud environment or our cloud environment. And then essentially, as part of that, it automatically archives straight into your archive solution, carrying with it the metadata for audit purposes at a later stage. And then importantly, going through the reviewing process of this document, again, task orientated, making sure that it's easy to read, it's in the right formats, it's been enhanced, as you can see, and making sure that the document can easily be updated where need be. And as you can see from this example, again, you have the same functionality within your reviewer function. And as part of that, you can accept or reject, which we've discussed already. And then the reason behind this is that the actual document has a threshold, right, that we've covered. So the volume or the value, let's say, of the purchase order might be quite high. So therefore, it needs a secondary signing. As you can see here, the director's now signed in to review this document. Again, it's all been archived so that they can find the right document wherever they need that. And then making sure the document is visible and has all the necessary enhancements. From a reviewing perspective, so using the reviewer, it's the same function. It's the task-oriented view. It has all the fields populated, as well as not just information fields, but also the validation comments there. You can add to, or she can add to that, and allow for easy review of adding signatures, right? So again, using a digital signature, this might be a requirement for yourself. So whatever signatory options you need, we can deliver that. Now, what you can see as part of this, clearly the signing has been sort of sending out notifications for the approved and for signing the purchase order. And what you can see as part of this document is the document is now exchanged to the director, which has the electronic signature attached or embedded, shall I say. And as part of that, the process is essentially archived and the document is now ready for going through its end document cycle. So in a nutshell, right, you've got an ERP document that's come out which doesn't look wonderful, as you can see on the screen. And as a result, the document doesn't, managers won't like it, right? So on the other side of it, you have an enhanced document. You have things like not just the signature element, which is built in electronically. You've also got in the top right-hand side even, you've got what's called an active QR function, which allows for this whole faster activities, let's say for faster payments, if it's an invoice, or for purchase order perspective, it might have product information in the QR code, and all that hopefully embeds a lot of trust across your organization, hopefully into your wider supply chain. So just to finish off very briefly, we've got a short session here around what a sales order basically looks like. It's carrying out the same functions. It's printing out through the ERP in exactly the same way. It's using Compleo Console to give the access that's needed within your workflow. And as part of that, you'll see that again you're using more of a web function, let's say, and essentially as part of the sales order status, you can double check what that looks like for your manager. And again, in the same type of way, we've essentially edited the documents, so thereby having a sort of a demo user function, which basically is designed to show how easy this information is. But on the other hand, we're now using a two-factor authentication using a mobile phone or the recipient, which allows for mobiles, for external approval, not just internal within a VPN. This is now using a HTTPS URL link as part of this document workflow. So you can clearly edit the document, you can parameterize it, which is wonderful. And as part of this workflow, once you click send, it's now initiated, right? So as I've already shown you in the live demonstration, the workflow is now initiated, and now all of a sudden the server behind the scenes has kicked off its processes. You can then see in the email function, you can obviously use multiple different, whether it's distribution channels, whether that's email, whether that's folders or whatever. And then again, you've got that two-factor authentication function, which is very useful for people working from home, or those people that don't quite have the right level of bandwidth to cope with a VPN. But you still need documents signed off. So it's giving you those options, right? So as part of this, as you can see, documents have been added to the purchase order. So clearly from a functional perspective, you might want to add contracts or whatever it might be, your contract. Clearly in the comments section, you can add the necessary comments, which will be added to the repository to keep reference. And again, you have those three options that I've listed already, the type it, the draw it, and the upload it. All those to allow electronic signing capabilities and digital signing capabilities. So in this example, we've essentially made sure that the signer has gone through several different options, and the importance behind making sure that this is usable for the end user is clearly paramount, to make sure that the business user has recognized the concatenated document as best as they can, to make sure that the document can be archived correctly, right? You don't want to be getting to a point where you've got a signed document, whether that's adding essentially more signatures and making sure that everybody signed it. At a later stage, it's hard to find and track all the signatures and draw them all into one document, as well as a separate contract. That's incredibly hard, right? So as part of this, you can see the workflows being updated. You've got the necessary QR codes, you've got the files, and clearly now this is stored within your ERP, and the signed document within the ERP holds all the necessary documents, including the proof file, right, which essentially keeps an itemized list of steps that it's gone through, right from signing it through an SMS. We even have the GPS location as well that we can track, and indeed sort of IP addresses as well. So as far as a sort of validation, clearly there's these four key benefits around guaranteeing security and traceability, making sure it's exceptional speed, which you've just seen a live demonstration in front of you, and then hopefully reducing manual errors and increasing that ever important response rate from managers, right? So as part of today's session, we've hopefully allowed you to focus on delivering a market-leading digital document approval workflow to help with your meet your flexible needs, bringing efficiency gains across your organizations, and making sure that your team's not relying on paper or ink sign-offs, and then constantly calling and emailing and for validators and approvers, and tracking down the physical signed documents, as well as I mentioned, the contracts. Getting them scanned and stored is always a challenge. So hopefully we've helped you focus a bit more on automating the approval process, which is external to your ERP, and engaging with the right audience and recipients, and allowing real-time status monitoring, as you've seen already in the Complayer console, for every document that's in that workflow, and then customizing and alerts and notifications to meet exact requirements to those different recipients. And then seamless archiving of e-signed documents and securely storing documents into either your ERP or a cloud environment, right? So we've helped you focus more on your stronger analytical skills and problem-solving skills, and hopefully not wasting time, right, and money, and staying in the 20th century, right? So let's look forward together, and let's make sure that we meet with purpose, let's say, and so we instead focusing on not clinging on to expensive paper document processes, accepting slow sign-off processes, looking high and low for historic signed documents, and then the painful manual entry into ERP, which I haven't really touched upon that much. But as you saw in the ERP example, it automatically uploads into your ERP environment. So, for us here, let's, potentially work together. Hopefully that's giving you the enough information to recognize that using a digital workflow allows for immediate sign-off from your managers with, at a fraction of the cost, and then making sure that you can track down every signed, accept, or even reject document, and then finally seamlessly archiving this into your ERP, right? Making sure that it's all tracked and traced, let's say, within a certified approval workflow. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate we've jumped over time here, but I can see in the chat window there are a few questions here. So there are a few. So let me have a look here. So I'll get my colleagues to pick three. We've listed three here. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. So first question is, what if paperless is not a high priority on management agenda? Well, obviously we can certainly appreciate management's your own management direction. Clearly, I've explained the trends and so on and so forth. I appreciate that might be hard, but I'll certainly recommend, we can do a free deep dive audit on your environment to just unearth some of the potential that's wrapped in there. I'm hoping I'm answering that question correctly. I'll obviously email back to everybody who's asked these questions. So can management use mobile access both internal and external? So yes is the straight answer. I've used the example, the mobile access example as WebSign being the type of workflow, which means that you're using an HTTPS URL link, which, as you've already seen, uses two-factor authentication to securely exchange the document. Now, the final question, can you change the metadata attached within each archived document? Well, yes, but you have to remember that you can't do it midway through a workflow, right? So you've got to change the workflow to adapt to make sure that that specific type of metadata you want to include is involved in that. But it's all based on the information fields that you collect as part of the output for the spool file within your ERP. So as I said, we've run out of time. However, feel free to reply to all the questions via email. But if you have any exact questions, let's say, feel free to contact me. So please contact me as your business solutions expert to explore the right solution for yourself and your organization. Obviously, following the session, I'll certainly share the recording, and feel free, a gentle reminder, please feel free to use the social channels highlighted on the bottom left-hand side of the screen to share the session with your colleagues and all your peers, right? So that's it from ourselves. So there's clearly more solutions that are available, not just the approval workflow space. As I mentioned, there's a series that you please keep in touch with that. And then I would certainly say from us all here at Simtrax, I would like to thank you for joining the session, and feel free just email me if you want to receive the rest of the series. But finally, please find on our website some more information clearly, and reach out to me directly if you want to join the peer-to-peer meetup group that we've set up. So yeah, for us here, I'd like to bid you a good day, and hope to hear from you soon.